Welcome to footballgameplan.com, where football makes sense. I'm Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Bring you our 2013 college football preview show. And today we're breaking down the Mountain West Conference. We're going to take a look at this conference top to bottom. But first, let's start on the recruiting trail to see how well these teams recruited this past offseason.
I believe the Boise State Broncos had the best recruiting class in the Mountain West Conference, a well-balanced recruiting class on both the offensive side of the football as well as the defensive side of the football. But one guy that stands out to me the most as the jewel of this class is quarterback Ryan Finley. You look at what he brings to the table, 6'4", 190. Yes, he can throw the football very well, but you see right here the athletic ability to put pressure on the defense on the perimeter. I think that's something that Boise State hasn't had at the QB spot. And you see right here the magic to elude the pressure, step up and making an accurate throw to the back of the end zone. So I think this guy has a bright future for the Broncos. In an effort to get better and a lot more stout up front defensively, you have to like Air Force signing Cody Moorhead, 6'4", 255, outstanding edge rush ability. He's going to probably play a lot as a freshman. And when you look at Colorado State, a team that's looking to break through, defensive tackle Orion King, 6'1", 280, is a great player to have up front in that 3-4 defense. When we look at Fresno State's quarterback Zach Greenlee, a freshman who's already cracked the 2 deep and may back up Derek Carr, so he's ready to take over next season as the starting quarterback for the Bulldogs. Definitely has a lot of arm talent. T.G. Hill will be an outstanding rover in that Hawaii defense, 6'2", 215, outstanding run defender, but also can drop back in coverage. Another team that has to get better defensively, and a freshman that may see time very early, linebacker Alec Moreno, 6'2", 240, is going to instantly bolster that linebacking core for the Nevada Wolfpack. JUCO transfer quarterback Clayton Mitchum should be able to help enhance an already stout running game for the New Mexico Lobos because of his athletic ability. Julius Wilson is a guy that has a lot of speed and should instantly add some explosiveness to the Aztec receiving core. 6'1", 175 can also help out as a returner. Another freshman of influence that can help out the receiving core, you look at Tyler Winston, 6'2", 185, outstanding hands, and was also a standout defensive back as well at the high school level. DJ Moffitt, coming out of an outstanding program in De La Salle in California. Here's a guy, 6'2", 210, another one of these rover players that can play linebacker but can also hold his own back there in coverage. And Wyoming got themselves an outstanding running back that does a great job of negotiating his way through traffic, and that's Omar Stover, 5'11", 192, another player that has already cracked the 2 deep on the Cowboys roster. Armed with one of the best quarterbacks in college football, the San Jose State Spartans have the best group of quarterbacks in the Mountain West Conference, with David Fells leading the way. And junior quarterback Blake Jurek is another guy that's a pretty good football player. Running back Casey Carrier ran for almost 1,500 yards last year and scored 15 touchdowns. And also last season as a freshman, running back Jarrell Presley ran for nearly 500 yards at 4.4 yards a carry, giving the Lobos a potent 1-2 punch in the backfield. Sophomore wide receiver Devontae Adams is a sensational talent, but also throwing Isaiah Burst, Josh Harper, Victor Dean, and tight end Marcel Jensen, and the Bulldogs receiving core is downright dangerous. All 5 starters return up front on an offense that averaged over 400 yards a game, and 4 seniors led by All-American center Tyler Lawson gives the Aggies the best offensive line in the conference. With guys on that defensive line like DeMarcus Lawrence and Ricky Joe, amongst others, the Boise State Broncos do a great job of reestablishing the line of scrimmage and also do an exceptional job on both ends of defense. It's a tie, in my opinion, between San Diego State and Colorado State for the best linebacking core in the Mountain West Conference. In the Aztecs 3-3-5 defense, they have 3 excellent backers led by middle linebacker Jake Feely, who can not only dominate in the running game, but can also get after the quarterback. Last year for Colorado State, freshman linebacker Corey James was named an All-American, and Shaquille Barrett, the senior linebacker outside edge rusher, is a legit NFL prospect. Bulldogs fly around the secondary, making play after play. Cornerback Sean Austin and free safety Darren Smith lead a group of guys back there that picked off 22 passes last season. I'm a big fan of the Rebels special teams unit with kicker Nolan Cohort, first team All Mountain West Conference last season, who can also punt. And the returner Marcus Sullivan is a guy that averaged an impressive 23.5 yards per kickoff return last season. Offensive MVP, in my opinion, will be quarterback Chucky Keaton out of Utah State. This is an outstanding quarterback that can do it both on the ground as well as through the air, and his leadership skills and toughness is always on display each and every Saturday. DeMarcus Lawrence burst onto the scene last year as a JUCO transfer, and his continued progression will be key for that Broncos defense, and I think he'll do a fine job as well this season. Rookie of the Year in the Mountain West Conference, keep an eye on linebacker Christian Tago out of San Jose State, a former high school quarterback, a top prospect as a quarterback, moving to the middle linebacker position where he has been impressive in spring practice. Tyler Larson out of Utah State is the best pro prospect in my opinion. Rarely do you see a center prospect be named the best pro guy coming out of a conference, but he is that type of player. The Nevada Wolfpack have the toughest schedule in the Mountain West Conference this year. You look at that road schedule at UCLA, at Florida State, and in conference they have to travel to all the top teams, San Diego State, Boise, Fresno, and an improving Colorado State team, and they round out the season by finishing versus a very strong BYU squad. Now let's start in the Mountain Division, and I have the New Mexico Lobos finishing 6th in the conference, and a reason for optimism: there's pieces on offense for the Lobos to be successful. They'll be able to run the ball once again with second-team Mountain West Conference performer Casey Carrier, who nearly rushed for 1,500 yards and also had 15 rushing touchdowns. They're solid on the offensive line, and they'll create ways to get the versatile wide receiver Chase Clayton the football. Defensively, they're stout at the second level. Weak side linebacker Dallas Bolema is a fantastic player. Now, the cause for concern: the passing game. It's a huge question mark in my opinion. Quarterback Cole Gaucher must become an accurate passer, or JUCO transfer Clayton Mitchum could step in and be the starter. We talked about him earlier. The defense made slight strides last season and can't afford a relapse. Can they generate enough pass rush to help the back four? That's the biggest question I have about the Lobos moving forward. Next up, we have the Air Force Falcons, and the reason for optimism: the spread option attack always gives you a chance, and the Falcons have guys on offense that can really light up the scoreboard. You look at wide receiver Ty MacArthur, he averaged 17.1 yards a catch last year, and they have two speedy tailbacks in John Lee and Anthony Lacoste. The offensive line is always solid and athletic for that option attack, and defensively, there's a young stud in defensive end Alex Hansen, 6'2", 240, and had 4 sacks as a true freshman. Now, the cause for concern: there's uncertainty at the quarterback position, not due to a lack of talent, but mostly due to a contrast in style. When you look at quarterback Jaleel Awani, you can see he can throw the football all over the field. That could open up that offense, while Cale Pearson is your classic option quarterback, 5'9", 180 with blazing speed. Defensively, they have problems getting off the field, and they really need the secondary, which was usually a strength for the Falcons, to step up and play and compete better. They have a tough road schedule at Boise, Navy, Nevada, and Colorado State. If they're going to get back to a bowl game, that defense is going to have to play a lot better, and they're going to have to pull off a stunner or two on the road. Coming in 4th place, I have the Wyoming Cowboys, and the reason for optimism: the Cowboys have a very good passing attack that can put up points in a hurry. Quarterback Brett Smith is another one of these young gunslingers that doesn't get the national credit. When we look at wide receivers Robert Herron and Jalen Claiborne, they're super quick and they're tough to cover. Cornerback Blair Burns has NFL potential, and Marqueston Huff is another solid all-around player. I also like the effort to beef up on the front lines. Now, the cause for concern: when you have a spread passing attack, two things tend to suffer as a byproduct: the running game and the run defense. Both require commitment and repetition to be successful, and the Pokes wasn't physical enough on both sides of the line of scrimmage, and it showed. So they're going to have to get tougher in the trenches, but when you look at the favorable schedule that they have, this is a good chance this Wyoming football team will get back to a bowl game in 2013. Next up are the Colorado State Rams, and the reason for optimism: the Rams will challenge the physicality of their opponents each and every game. They have a big and veteran offensive line that returns all 5 starters, led by 2-time All-Mountain West Conference performer, senior center Weston Richburg, and there's an excellent 1-2 punch in the backfield with Chris Nwoke and Donnell Alexander, and a utilization of 2 tight end sets with pro prospect Crockett Gilmore and Kevon Cartwright makes it tough to match up versus Colorado State. Defensively, they have arguably the best linebackers once again in the conference, led by Shaquille Barrett, an outstanding edge rusher, and freshman All-American Corey James. They're very solid in the secondary as well. The cause for concern: there's 2 quarterbacks that could start the season for Colorado State. You look at Connor Smith or Garrett Grayson. In my opinion, both guys have to play better, and they have to find a wide receiver outside of Charles Levitt to step up and take some of the pressure off the passing game. Now, defensively, the hope is that the 3 new starters on that defensive line will help improve their porous run defense. And I think they can. They have the linebackers, they have the defensive line now, they're solid in the secondary, and that ground game can control the clock. So all signs point to Colorado State returning to a bowl game this year. In second place, I have the Boise State Broncos, and the reason for optimism, head coach Chris Peterson does a heck of a job recruiting as well as coaching. Their 4-2-5 will once again give offenses problems each and every week. And I'm a big fan of the front six with sensational defensive end DeMarcus Lawrence, who had 9.5 sacks last year. Defensive tackle Ricky Tajongo Joe, 6'3", 296, collapsed in the pocket from within. And defensive end Sam Owokochu, who was also a very solid edge rusher on the opposite side. Linebacker Blake Renard and strong safety Jeremy Ione and Darian Thompson also are very solid versus the run as well as the pass. Offensively, I think they'll be much improved from a yardage standpoint, especially quarterback Joe Southwick, second year as the starting guy. Very strong offensive line, and wide receiver Matt Miller could push for All-American honors. Sophomore running back Joe Ajayi could also top 1,200 yards. But the cause for concern, this is a solid team but not explosive as we're used to seeing from Boise State. There's also some questions at the cornerback position, and defensively, there's a lot of youthful inexperience. And when you look at their road games at Washington, Fresno, Utah State, BYU, Colorado State, as well as San Diego State, you have to wonder about these guys' ability to win on the road. But we know we've been proven wrong when talking about Boise State before. This is still a very good football team, but not the best in the Mountain Division. Coming in first place on the mountain side of the Mountain West Conference, I have the Utah State Aggies, and the reason for optimism, outstanding junior quarterback Chucky Keaton is the most underrated quarterback in the country, and he's back ready to lead, which should be another good year for the Aggies. He's well protected up front with all 5 starters returning on an offensive line led by All-American center Tyler Lawson. And there's no continuity loss with new head coach Matt Wells, who was the quarterback coach the last couple of seasons. And they take the next man up approach in the backfield, so expect Joe Hill to do just fine. And defensively, 7 starters returned from a defense that held opponents to 3 yards a carry and 15 points a game. 3 first-team all-WAC performers returned at linebacker, and sophomore defensive end Jordan Nelson was also an all-WAC performer. Now, the cause for concern, they literally will count on a bevy of JUCO transfers to bolster the wide receiving core, which was depleted by graduation. Timing has to be perfect from day one as they open up versus in-state rival Utah, and they also have to travel to USC. But this is still a very talented team with an outstanding quarterback, so I think they'll do just fine this season. And let's move over to the West Division and start with the Hawaii Warriors. And the reason for optimism, there's improvement in continuity for Norm Chow. Second year implementing his system should yield better results. And I believe there's talent in the backfield with running back Joe Iosefa and redshirt freshman Steve Lakalaka. Defensively, you look at defensive tackle Tavita Woodard and linebacker Art Laurel. It gives them hope in the front 7. Now, the cause for concern, the quarterback position really needs to raise its game. Former Ohio State transfer Taylor Graham gets his shot to revive the passing game, but all will be for naught if that offensive line doesn't do a better job overall, both in pass protection and also run blocking. Defensively, they were young. I honestly believe they'll surprise on that side of the football, and they'll use that defense to try to keep it close until the offense finds its way. Now, they have a tough schedule once again, but I think next year, 2014, you'll see the Hawaii Warriors start to break through. Coming in 5th, I have the UNLV Rebels, and the reason for optimism, the Rebels will get back to being known as the Running Rebels this year as they boast an impressive 1-2 punch in the backfield with Tim Cornett and Adonis Smith. They're big and experienced up front as well, especially from guard to guard. And it's solid receiving options as well with Devontae Davis looking across the 1,000-yard barrier this season, and excellent special teams. So they'll be in every ball game. Now, the cause for concern will be the defensive side of the football. 9 starters returned from a unit that gave up 32 points a game and over 200 yards rushing per game. The hope is that experience will turn into production. They also need better play from the quarterback position. Nick Sherry shows promise as a freshman, and now he's a sophomore, but he has to protect the ball a lot better. If both the quarterback and the defense can make improvements, the Rebels could flirt with 6 wins this year. Coming in 4th place, I have the Nevada Wolfpack, and the reason for optimism, junior quarterback Cody Fajaro is your quintessential dual threat player, rushing for over 1,100 yards last year and throwing for almost 3,000. His 2 top receiving options returned in Brandon Wimberly and Richie Turner. And I'm not worried about the running back position. They'll be able to run the football no matter who's back there in the backfield. Defensively, they also have some speed coming off the edges with Brock Hecking and Lenny Jones. Now, the cause for concern, the defense. Outside of a few spots, they struggled mightily last year. The run defense in particular has to improve. Over 200 yards rushing per game given up. They also gave up 33 points a game. Also, you can't undervalue what Chris Alt meant to this program, and although Brian Polian was an excellent hire, there still is an adjustment period that has to take place. And when you look at their schedule, we talked before, it's brutal. So right now, I do believe Nevada will be able to put up points. They'll be involved in a lot of shootouts, but this is a reloading year for the Wolfpack. Coming in third, I have the San Jose State Spartans, and the reason for optimism, there's enough talent to win here for San Jose State. Quarterback David Fells is a surgeon with the football and has underrated athleticism. There's an excellent receiving core in place with Grigsby, Jones, and Carr, and also 4 out of 5 starters returned up front on that offensive line. Now on the defensive side of the football, the move to the 3-4 is a good one because of their linebacking core. You look at Keith Smith, Vince Buhagi, a first-team All-WAC performer, and redshirt freshman Christian Tago looks to be a budding star. Cornerback Benet Benwikere is an All-American candidate once again. And when you look at the cause for concern, replacing tight end Ryan Odden is key. He was a big part of their offense. He controlled the middle of the field. And defensively, they also have to replace 18 sacks that were vacated with the graduations of Travis Johnson and David Tui Tupau. Now, 4 out of the 6 first games of the season are on the road, so the running game has to come ready to play in order for these guys to challenge for the West Division Championship. Next up, we have the San Diego State Aztecs, and the reason for optimism, this is still a very dangerous football team. The Aztecs returned 15 starters from a squad that made a bowl appearance last year, and defensively, despite losing their best corner, they are still pretty tough on that side of the football. The linebacking core is arguably one of the best in the conference, and adding Bob Toledo on offense not only will it help improve the passing game, but also you look at running back Adam Muima, he could push for All-American honors because of his versatility. So that right there gives you a reason to be optimistic if you're an Aztec fan. Now the cause for concern, you look at quarterback Adam Dingwell, he did an admirable job as a fill-in. Can he sustain and increase his production as a full-time starter? The wide receiving core also has to step up and become more productive. But the Aztecs have a very good schedule. They get Boise State, Oregon State, and Fresno at home, so they could make a run for the Mountain West crown. And finally, we have the Fresno State Bulldogs finishing first in the West Division. And the reason for optimism, the Bulldogs have one of the more talented rosters on the West Coast this season. Dangerous passing game with All-American candidate Derek Carr throwing to legit NFL prospect and redshirt sophomore Devontae Adams, Isaiah Burks as well. Fresno State can spread you out, and their third and fourth receiver is better than your third and fourth corner. Now on defense, they can get after you, and they do a great job of playing the run on the way to the quarterback with talented defensive linemen Tyler Davison and Andy Jennings. On the back end, they can cover with cornerback Sean Alston and free safety Deron Smith. Now the cause for concern, bad taste in their mouth from a horrible performance in the Hawaii Bowl last year that exposed their weaknesses. They have problems protecting Carr in the pocket, and they also have to replace their all-time leading rusher in Robbie Rouse. Like we said about Wyoming, they will have to play with more physicality on the offensive side of the football. That was a clear difference in philosophy from Pat Hill and Tim DeRuyter. The schedule sets up nice, and Fresno State has the talent and the depth that could flirt with an undefeated season.